Let us now open our Bibles to the book of 2 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles chapter 20, and we shall read together verse 12. 2 Chronicles chapter 20 and verse 12. Reading, O our God, will thou not judge them? For we have no might against this great company that cometh against us. Neither know we what to do, but our eyes are upon thee. Our text for consideration this morning is the end part of King Jehoshaphat's prayer, which begins in verse 5. It was a prayer addressed to God on behalf of the entire kingdom of Judah, who was at this time in a very difficult, if not desperate situation. If you can take a quick look down in verse 1 and verse 2, there you would find the situation that they are having. There you would find the condition. Now, look at verse 1 and 2. It came to pass after this also that the children of Moab and the children of Ammon, and with them others beside the Ammonites, came against Jehoshaphat to battle. Then there came some that told Jehoshaphat, saying, There cometh a great multitude against thee from beyond the sea on this side Syria. And behold, they be in Hazazon Tamar, which is in En-Gedi. Now, kung atong tanawon na siya diha mga kaigsoonan, briefly ako ning ipasabot diha ninyo, niining tumura, King Jehoshaphat reigned as king over the entire kingdom of Judah. Now, obviously, you should know that at this time, Israel has long been divided into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And at this period of time, it was King Jehoshaphat who reigned as king over Judah, meaning the southern kingdom. Now, King Jehoshaphat was among those good kings that the kingdom of Judah has had, together with the leaders of the kingdom. King Jehoshaphat was able to bring reforms. He was able to establish the kingdom very well. He was able to bring about reforms to the kingdom. In other words, King Jehoshaphat is counted as among the good kings that the kingdom of Judah has had. Upon niining tumura, it happened in such a time nga dili pa lang siyang dugay nga nilingkod isip hari sa maong naging harian. And then, mauna ni iyang giatubang. And what is it that he is facing? Look again, verse 1 we learn that the children of Moab, the children of Ammon, and with them beside the Ammonites came against Jehoshaphat to battle. Now, these are the people nga diin, kung atong mahinumduman, these are the people nga diin naagian na ni siya, nalabyan na ni siya ni Moses when he brought about the people in their wilderness wandering. Now, of course, I don't have the time to bring to you the geography, but crossing the Red Sea, muuning mga dapita ang ilahang nagian. Og sa pag-agi nila niining mga dapita, they pass through the land of Moab, they pass through the land of Ammon. There were times that the people of this land would refuse them entry. Apan tungod kay wa man sila laing choice, kung dili nga dihangit sila muagi, bisan tuod og nananghid sila nga muagi lang sila kay wadto sila sa promised land, imbes na nananghid sila maayo nga muagi lang sila, nahimong samok na away. And obviously, in those times that they fought it out in battle, these people of Moab and Ammon were defeated. Napukan, napildi. And it was long time, no? It was during the time of Moses, not even during the time of Joshua, it was during the time of Moses. But somehow, years passed. Pila na kakatuigan, daw makita nato that the children of Moab and the children of Ammon still have that unresolved issues. Murag wa pa sila ka-get over sa ilahang nahiabuman ng kapilihan in the hands of Moses. And so, as you can see in here, the children of Moab, the children of Ammon, Now, if you are familiar with your Bible geography, even of your map, in today's map, kaning mga tawhana, they come from this place that is now called as Jordan. That portion of the land that is now known as the nation of Jordan. They were the enemies of Israel at that time. And so as we read, they were having a coalition. No? They come together and they make that alliance among them, planning to attack and invade Jerusalem. Gani, looking at verse 2, there came a report unto Jehoshaphat that this great multitude from beyond the sea, now the sea that is referred to here is the Dead Sea. Huh? Israel, there is a Dead Sea, then there is the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee. So beyond the sea, no, gikan din islikas. Unya, what is being told here to Jehoshaphat in verse 2 is that they have come from beyond the sea, and behold, they already have crossed the sea, nga naman, because they are in this place, Hazazon Tamar, which is in Gedi. And Gedi is part of Judah already. What does that mean? Gikan tuod sila diha from the other side, nakalabang na sila sa dagat because the news that came to Jehoshaphat is they are already in this place called En Gedi. In other words, the enemies were fast approaching and advancing towards Jerusalem. In fact, this place called En Gedi is just about 25 miles from where Jehoshaphat is in Jerusalem. The enemy had invaded the homeland. Now this is very interesting. Kaya bisan gani karon we hear in this current news na now and then there are these skirmishes and battles in between Israel and the people surrounding them. Now, mayroon pa nato nga mga extended version ng siya mga tigsunan sa mga issues na ilahang nga giatubang even during biblical times. Now, the enemy had invaded them and they were fast approaching Jerusalem at an alarming rate. And why do I say alarming rate? Because when the news came to Jehoshaphat, the enemy were just 25 miles away from them. So in a matter of time, they surely will be invaded. In a matter of time, they surely will be overwhelmed by their enemies. Now, we were not given the exact number of enemies, mga kaigsunan. But as we look at this, it brings to our attention that King Jehoshaphat and the kingdom of Judah at this time was in what I would call as a state of emergency, or in the midst of a national crisis. Nga naman, people from other kingdoms are actually making that alliance to invade Judah. And somehow, mga kaibigan, that gives us a picture that Judah under King Jehoshaphat was no doubt in a state of emergency or in the midst of national crisis. Now, why do I say that, mga kaibigan? Tungod kay sa ato ang mapaglantaw ninyo, buot na ko nga atong katunon ang mga pagtulunan that we can learn from King Jehoshaphat. Nga naman? Because like King Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah, we all do face difficulties in life. True. They may come to us in different sizes and shapes. Some come in the form of a slight inconvenience. Kanang mga ingon nato nga mga minor nga mga kalisod o mga pagsuway. While others come like a flood that is rushing, wiping everything along the way. Then others come without warning or perhaps unexpected, if not underestimated. Like this current situation that we are having today. Are we not in a difficult times? Yes, we are. Are we not going through some crisis? Yes, we are. But somehow, mga kaibigan, if we can look back in the early days of this crisis, yes, we never have expected that this crisis would last this long and would be this serious and would be this destructive and devastating. I'm sure we never have thought about it this way. It may have come with a warning, but despite the warning, it seems like many were caught by surprise. We would never expect that the effect of and the impact of this crisis would be such as this. Nga naman? Because the thing is, not only that it was unexpected, it was also underestimated. And so what? We are in this situation. And we are going through this situation. Very much like what King Jehoshaphat and the kingdom of Judah is having. I thought of considering this with you, mga kaibigan, because it is in these times of difficulty and despair that many would find themselves in a loss or be confused on how to respond to the crisis, whether to respond in fear and find way of escape, or with bold courage face and endure the difficult situation. Maong na kadaghanan. In times of difficulties, the two common responses will be this: fear and then escape, fight and face the situation. These are the two common responses. But what about those times when we don't have any choice at all? Yes, na mga sitwasyon that we can have a choice, that we respond in fear and escape, or we respond in such a situation that we face the situation and fight the situation and endure the situation. But what about those times when we find ourselves with no choice? Those times when we are afforded neither of this. Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation that is impossible to escape. And we lack the inner strength and wisdom to deal with our adversity. Now what? And this is what we're about to see in today's message I titled, "But Our Eyes Are Upon Thee, O God." Judah and King Jehoshaphat faced such a situation. They were somewhat in a loss on how to deal with their condition, whether to overcome or escape the enemy's advances. And also, they did not have the courage or wisdom within themselves to overcome. Yet, despite such a desperate situation, it is interesting to note that Jehoshaphat responded in a way that brought about deliverance. Brought about their deliverance. Now, look with me in our text. And I want us to consider what and how Jehoshaphat responded. I want us to consider, first of all, Jehoshaphat's deliberate call upon God. Jehoshaphat's deliberate call upon God. Now, look at the first part of our text. O our God, will thou not judge them? As I have said a while ago, our text is the closing part of Jehoshaphat's prayer, which begins in verse 5. This prayer of Jehoshaphat is what made him different from many other kings of Judah. Nga naman, notice in here how King Jehoshaphat responded in times of trouble. You know, mga kaisunan, if you study the history of Israel, even in both in the United and the divided kingdom, not much on the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom only three kings, Saul, David, and Solomon. beginning at the divided kingdom, when the kingdom of Israel was divided into two, north and south, no? The kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. If you study all those kings, oftentimes, in the midst of trouble, in the midst of crisis, in the midst of a situation like this, the kings would respond in this way to fight it out. They would be very brave. Even when they know that they are outnumbered, their common tendency is to fight it out. And that is what made Jehoshaphat different from the rest of the kings. Kaya nga naman, in the midst of this threat of invasion, in the midst of this state of emergency, in the midst of this national crisis, rather than fighting it out, rather than escaping the issue, he chose to pray. Now look here. Look here. This is what made Jehoshaphat stands out from other kings of Judah. Notice that when trouble came his way, he knew where to run to, and he knew who to call on to. Let's take a quick look at verse 3. Tanaw na itong verse 3, eh? And Jehoshaphat feared and set himself to seek the Lord and proclaim a fast throughout all Judah. Now, tanawa niya. The verse tells us that he being king is not denying that he's afraid. Nibati siya kahadlok. Now, this is something that you seldom find in other kings. Kaya nga naman, hari ko, I cannot afford myself to be seen by people and by my people to be afraid. Di kong makatugot na makitaan ko sa kong mga katawhan na nibati ko kahadlok. I must be bold, I must be brave, I must be courageous on behalf of my people. But look at verse 3. Jehoshaphat feared. And you know mga kaibigan, when fear sets into our hearts, we can either be intimidated by our fear, nga mahadlok na ganita, di nang kita ka-focus kung sa atong buhaton. Kaya nga naman, napildi na ka sa tuwang kahadlok. We can be intimidated by our fear. On the other hand, when in fear, we can also be motivated to call upon the Lord. Remember David in Psalm 56? The time that I'm afraid, I will trust in thee. And that is what we see here in the case of Jehoshaphat. You know what? Look on verse 3. And Jehoshaphat feared. But look at the next. And set himself to what? To seek the Lord. Isn't it worth noticing, mga kaibigan? Here is a king who's supposed to be brave, bold, and courageous on behalf of his own people. Yet we read that Jehoshaphat feared. But in the midst of fear, he did not allow himself to be intimidated by fear, but rather be motivated to seek upon God. He set himself to seek the Lord. And then notice what's next. And proclaim a fast throughout Judah. In other words, kaliwa sa iyahang kahadlok, he seek the Lord. Not only that he seek the Lord, he also called upon the people to do the same. Karang pakingon niya, proclaim a fast throughout all Judah. In other words, he is calling upon the entire kingdom, the entire nation, the people of Judah to join him in prayer. And lo and behold, that is what we read in verse 4. Look at verse 4 now. And Judah gathered themselves together. And look at this, what they do. To ask help of the Lord. Even out of all the cities of Judah, they came to seek the Lord. Nindot kayo nga kanang talan-awon mga kigsunan, you know, if only we can have godly leaders to lead us to the Lord. King Jehoshaphat is king over Israel. When the nation is in the state of crisis, when the nation is in the state of emergency, unang nga ilahang ihimo. You know, Sa ato ang mga panahon karon, call all the counselors, call all the advisors, call all the consultants, how we are to deal with this situation, right? Kanindot kayo, ingon ni Henny ba, na when in a state of difficulty, in a state of crisis, before doing anything else, what did he do? He seek the Lord. Not only that he seek the Lord, he called upon his people to do the same. Tanaw, pag-ayo ang verse 4, ang katapusan ba sa verse 3, and proclaim a fast throughout all Judah. In other words, he made that proclamation. He announced. And then, sa diha nga dadumok ang iyang proklamasyon, verse 4, and Judah gathered themselves together to ask help of the Lord, even out of all the cities of Judah. Look at this. They came to see the Lord. Jehoshaphat, setting a good and godly example for his people, sent out to call on the people to pray and seek the Lord. And lo and behold, the entire nation responded to the call. Now, utang na ito pananglit. If indeed King Jehoshaphat proclaimed that the whole of Judah would fast and pray unto the Lord and seek the Lord, kunya siyawa, surely you cannot expect the entire nation of Judah to obey him, because first and foremost, he himself was not doing. Apan ang nakanindot din kay kumbinsido yun ang katawhan sa Judah, kay nga naman mismo ang hari. No? Set a good example. And so when Jehoshaphat called upon the people to pray and seek the Lord, the entire nation responded to the call. People from every city in Judah made their way to Jerusalem to stand united in prayer and in supplication. How wonderful. Now, what I want us to notice here is how people were given to prayer and were united in prayer. And you know, mga kaigsunan, we are in such a desperate situation. Now, let's face it, not all our government leaders are true believers in the Lord, but let's not put the burden on them. Let's take it to ourselves. We are God's people. And we are in such a desperate situation that we need to call upon the Lord, and that we need to come together in prayer before the Lord. Yes, it is not an excuse. Kung saan man ito pag-ampo, pastor, na dili man ta pwedeng magkatigom. No, it's never an excuse. Because even aning atong tigom karon is one testimony and witness that even when we may not be able to come together physically as one body of believers, yet we are still able to come before the Lord in prayer. If only we can call upon each one of God's people to come together in the presence of the Lord to pray. Yes, we are in such a time. Now, isn't it interesting? Of all the things that Jehoshaphat would do and would think of doing, una yun niya nga kaliw. Remember verse 3? Dibate siya sa iyang nadungog, nahadlok siya, apan diya siyang hadlok. Iyang gipili na he would seek the Lord first. And in so doing, when he made that proclamation, setting a good example, the rest of his people followed. How wonderful, isn't it? How wonderful. And so, as we look at this example of Jehoshaphat, yes, we see in here, Jehoshaphat's deliberate call upon God. Okay, that's our first one, right? Jehoshaphat's deliberate call upon God. Something for us to learn. And what is it that we need to learn? That instead of setting his eyes upon the problem, he set his eyes upon God. Nakuha natin mga kaibigan? Jehoshaphat set his eyes upon God, just as the title of today's message goes. Instead of setting his eyes upon the problem, he trained his eyes upon God. He called upon God, deliberately called upon God. In fact, in our text, first part, "Oh, our God, will not thou judge them?" He is indeed referring to the enemies that are about to attack and invade Judah. What I want us to notice here is in the example that Jehoshaphat had set for his people, and the example that Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah have set before us as our example. Si King Jehoshaphat, taliwa sa krisis ng giatubang, una ginindihimo, he sought the Lord. And in seeking the Lord, gusto usab niya ang katawan musunod sa iyahang pagsalpit ngadto sa Ginoo. And so sa iyahang pagtawag sa katawan, calling upon them to fast and pray, as we have read in verse 4, it's very encouraging that Judah gathered themselves together and then what? To ask help of the Lord. Even out of all the cities of Judah, they came to seek the Lord. Dear brethren, we can never underestimate the ministry of prayer and intercession. All this while na nakita niya ng crisis, one thing that I have been telling each one of you and calling upon you is to be active in the ministry of prayer and intercession. In fact, that is the very means that the Lord gave us, whereby we can call upon Him, we can cast all our cares and burdens upon Him, and that we can draw comfort and strength from Him in our prayer. In fact, we are dealing with 2 Chronicles chapter 20, few chapters back from 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. A very familiar verse would remind us, "If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways," and then what? "Then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land." Dear brethren, perhaps we have not really been praying that much. The prayer that we are looking here is largely a prayer of Jehoshaphat, that he prayed unto the Lord, but it reflects the sentiment of all the people. In other words, Jehoshaphat prayed this prayer, but this prayer that Jehoshaphat prayed is also reflective of all the burdens and the cares of all the people of Judah. And notice here how indeed Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah call upon God. Verse 6, look at verse 6. "And said, O Lord God of our fathers, are not thou God in heaven, and rulest not thou over all the kingdoms of heaven? And in thine hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand thee?" Kung sa ilaha nga ginampo diha. You know mga kaigsunan, while there is nothing wrong to call upon the Lord and straight away pray, "Lord, save us from our enemies," notice here that Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah first and foremost address God in His preeminence and of His power. Again, ako gusto mo na, walay dautan, kung dili sayop, nga mundisyo na ampo si Jehoshaphat o ang katawan, "Lord, nagdama-dama na among kaaway, luwasa kami gikan sa among mga kaaway." Why dautan niya na? But it is worth noticing that Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah did not go straight. Now, some of you may be thinking, "Unsa din ni pastor? Formalities?" No, this is not formalities. Jehoshaphat here and the people addressed God for who He is. Look at what he said there. "O Lord God of our fathers, are not thou the God of heaven?" The preeminence of God. And look at this. "And rulest not thou over all the kingdoms of the heathen?" reminding them that yes, God is preeminent, God is supreme, God is sovereign. Rulest not thou over the kingdoms of the heathen? And look at this. And in thine hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand thee? Now kung ato na siyang pagkalatutukan pag-ayaw mga kaisunan, it would give us an impression that King Jehoshaphat seems to know God so well. That He is the God of heaven, He is the Almighty Creator, and He reigns supreme and sovereign over all His creation. What else can we see in their prayers? Now come down to verse 7. Are not thou our God, who drive the inhabitants of this land before thy people Israel, and gave us to the seed of Abraham thy friend forever? And they dwelt therein, and have built a sanctuary therein for thy name. Kung sa iyang sulti niya, iyang gisampit ang Ginoo haron nga mapahinumduman nila ilahang kaugalingon nga Lord, nahibaw mi nga ikaw may nagdaan namo dinhi. Kay kini katumanan sa imong saad ngadto kang Abraham. Now think about it. Pila na henerasyon ang milabay. The covenant was made with Abraham. And then what? From Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then what? Moses, and then after Moses what? Joshua. Then after Joshua what? All the kings. Now even before the kings, there were judges. Then after the judges came the kings. Saul, David, Solomon, and so on and so forth. So kung atong lantahon din taas-taas na nga panahon, and yet they prayed for themselves to be reminded sa unsay nahimo sa Ginoo diha og alang kanila. They were reminded when they call upon God in this manner, they were reminded of the promises of God that He made with Abraham. And in bringing the children of Abraham, the generation of Abraham, into this promised land of milk and honey, of which they now enjoy. Sumuka na nilahang gisampit nga to sa Ginoo. And what else did they pray for? Come down to verse 9. If when evil cometh upon us, as the sword, judgment, or pestilence, or famine, we stand before this house and in thy presence, for thy name is in this house, and cry unto thee in our affliction, then thou wilt hear and help. Now, notice those two words. Ikaw mismo, Ginoo, nagapainumdum ka namo, nagadasig ka namo, nagatudlo ka namo, nga in times of distress, if we would call upon you, what will you do? You will hear and help. This is something also, mga kaisunan, that I'd like us to learn. You know, diha sa tuwang mga pag-akpo, this is not about formalities. This is a kind of prayer that is so full of truth about who God is. The preeminence of God, the sovereignty of God, the faithfulness of God to keep His promise, the power of God to protect His people, and most of all, the faithfulness of God to hear and answer our prayer. Look at what they said, last part of verse 9. And cry unto thee in our affliction, then thou wilt hear and help. That was the comfort of King Jehoshaphat, and that was the comfort of all the people with him. You know, mga kaisunan, oftentimes when we are faced with difficulties and trials, we have the tendency to feel that God has forsaken us, and God has abandoned us, and that we are on our own. Or perhaps we may succumb to the kind of thinking that our problem and our situation is just so great and so severe and serious that there's nothing that God cannot do. Now, hinumdumi, nga kining sitwasyon nga giatubang ni King Jehoshaphat kauban sa katawhan sa Judah is not a light matter. It's a matter of what? National crisis or a national state of emergency. For again, if you can take a quick look, some of your Bibles may have maps behind it. Judah is the southern part of Israel, Jerusalem, and you can find Dead Sea and the Jordan River. Now, those places that are mentioned there, Moab, Ammon, those are actually people coming from the right side across the Jordan River. In other words, the entire people of that land occupying that portion across the sea, they are coming as one. Nagkahiusa sila. Now, that place, as I have mentioned a while ago, is what is known today as Jordan. Although at that time, it is subdivided. No? The northern part is called Gilead, Ammon, Moab, and Edom. And that is what we see. The children of Moab, the children of Ammon, and those Ammonites. In other words, they have this coalition forces na nagkahiusa sila and they are invading Israel. It's not just about one army. It's all about the entire army of that land. Grabe ka to nga hulga. Grabe ka to nga kanang crisis nga ilahang giyatubang. It could have been a very bloody experience for the people of Judah. Apan taliwa ni ining tanan. Gani ato yung nabasa kaganiha. Jehoshaphat was afraid. But the thing is, he was not intimidated by fear, but instead he was motivated to seek the Lord. And this is something that we must learn. Nga sa bisag unsa nga mga kalisod, inaatong maatubang o pag-atubangon. Yes, human as we are, like Jehoshaphat, we can succumb to fear. Natural ka na ka-respond sa ato ang kinabuhi. We can succumb to fear. But the good thing is, kung ikaw ang anak sa Diyos, if you succumb to fear, rather than be intimidated by fear, may you be motivated to seek the Lord. Remember David, what time I am afraid, I will trust in Thee. So it is with us, mga kaigsunan, na taliwa sa mga krisis, taliwa sa mga kalisod, makalilisan ang mga sitwasyon. As I have been saying, even at this time na itong yatubang karon, may we be able to reflect and consider the example of Jehoshaphat. That instead of focusing and training his eyes towards the problem, he chose to train his eyes towards God. And he deliberately called upon God in prayer. Now, moving on, the second part of our text, I want us to notice here that Jehoshaphat's deliberate call to pray was then followed by Jehoshaphat's desperate cry. Okay? Deliberate call, then desperate cry. Look at how desperate his cry was. For we have no might against this great company that cometh against us, neither know we what to do. Tanawa pa kayo? He was indeed desperate in calling upon the Lord and in crying upon the Lord, Lord, unsaon man ako ni? We had no power to fight our enemies. Much more, we don't know what to do. That's why I say that it was a deliberate call to pray and then followed by a desperate cry unto God. And this is another example that is worth noticing. Jehoshaphat, instead of looking towards their own self and on how they could find ways and means to deal with the problem, they straightaway set their eyes upon God. human as we are, mga kigsunan, naagin ay tendency nga murag musalig sa itong kaugalingon ba? Human nature, human tendency. Kining crisis nga itong iatubang karon. Just look around how our national leaders, how our government leaders, yes, they are earnest, they are sincere, they are committed to doing what they can possibly do to solve the problem. But somehow, alam ka na to, here is something that they may have failed to consider. They may have failed to consider, to accept. Wa gid ni kalibutan og usaon na mo ni, kabangi ni, basig na mo ika-contribute. Nga naman, human as we are, we have that kind of tendency. Now by all means, that is human nature. And as I have said, as we look around us, sa tuang mga leaders, national, local leaders, yes, they have been earnest. They have sacrificed their time and effort to find ways and means kung saan yun nila ito pag-sulbat ang atong ito mga crisis. But perhaps, they may have failed to come to realize and to accept the fact na we don't know what to do. A humbling experience. Kinsa kaninyo diha. Kay usahay ang ato ang makita kung karon is all tainted with political colors. If the counsel and advice and help coming from different parties, di pwede kay kontrapartido. Look at what Jehoshaphat here said. We have no might against this great company that cometh against us. Neither know we what to do. Kung sa ito nakita niya, Jehoshaphat's desperate cry unto the Lord, that instead of looking towards their own selves on how to deal with the situation, instead they straightaway set their eyes upon God. And notice here a very humbling admission of King Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah. A very humbling admission nga naman, unsa may ilahang gi-admitter diri, unsa may ilahang giangkon dinhi sa presensya sa Ginoo. Notice how they admitted of their inability. Inability. Tanawa ilang gisulti diha, we have no might against this great company that cometh against us. Lord, we are helpless. You know, seldom you would hear these words from a leader. Kaya lagi, leader gani, I must be bold, I must be brave, I must be courageous, I must be, quote-unquote, all-knowing. I must have the ability to deal with a situation, even solve problem. But you know what? As I have been telling you, here are just too many precious lessons that we can learn from Jehoshaphat. The king of Judah, but he was never in such a kind of attitude na magpatuo-tuo, na isog siya o di siya mahadlok. Verse 3 we learn, na nahadlok din siya. Nining tungura, hari siya sa kingdom of Judah, pero wag din siya magpatuo nga maalamon siya sa tanan. That he has all the ability to deal with any situation. Look at what he said. We have no might against this great company that cometh against us. He admitted his inability. Wa ko'y kapasidad. Wa ko niya nga abilidad. Gani. Not only that he admitted of his inability and their inability, notice that they also have admitted of their ignorance. Look at the next part. Neither know we what to do. Now, inumdumi nga nagsulti ani ko sa kahari. It is indeed a humbling experience. Pero that humbling experience, indeed, has brought about that deliverance. Nga naman, in that humbling experience that he admitted himself, for himself and for the people before the Lord, we are able to deal with this situation. In fact, the truth of the matter is we really don't know what to do. If only leaders of today can follow the example of Jehoshaphat. You know, mga kaibigan, we need to be reminded of this as well. Now, let's not go beyond. Let's examine ourselves. We have yung mga panahon sa itong kinabuhi that we have the tendency to put and take matters into our hands, and then we tend to deal with it according to our ways. With una sa tanan, ikaw, kita, mismo hibaw, na murag lisod man eh. Murag bakpo man hibaw na ako. Murag big man ko kumakuha eh. Yes. Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah, that the situation is just so enormous and so overwhelming for them to handle. And they were somewhat in a loss, and that they don't have the wisdom to deal with it. In fact, they were humble enough to admit, we don't know what to do. That is why Jehoshaphat desperately cried unto the Lord. Rather than wasting time to do a trial and error, ato ning buhaton nini, basin pa rin mahimo. Uy, plan A, plan B, plan C. No. They straight away call upon God. Kung maglantaw ka karon sa social media again, to bring to your attention, be careful with your comment, because your comment may end up into a complaint or criticizing. Kaya naglibog na ganito kung asa ang adog ang ibig ang sa quarantine pass ba? O sa sakyanan ba? Di ba, Wizard? Namo ka na. Let me encourage you. Be careful with your comment, because your comment may become a complaint and a criticism. The more we should be encouraged to pray. Pray for ourselves, pray for the church. Continue to pray also for our government leaders. Kaya nga naman, daghan ng mga nakita nato that they are really struggling. Hindi na nato punan ang burden diya kanila, that rather be a blessing. Remember them in our prayer. Let's learn from Jehoshaphat. Even when they may not be able to bring themselves to a humbling admission, let's intercede on their behalf. Lord, grant wisdom upon our leaders, that they will be able to deal with the situation. Nga naman, in the case of Jehoshaphat, he admitted their inability, and also they admitted their ignorance. And you know, mga kaibigan, these two things somehow are the kind of items and truth that we don't like to admit. Inability and ignorance. Oftentimes, when we are moved with pride, sa pagtuunin mo, di ka balo. Gani, the more we look at Jehoshaphat at this point, mga kaibigan, the more we be able to really appreciate godly leadership. Huwag din siya nagpakaroon nun, huwag din siya nagpatutuo. Siya mismo ni admitter sa Ginoo, he feared, right? He seeked the Lord and told the people to seek the Lord together with him. Unya, siya leading the prayer, you look at what he prayed. He admitted right before the public of his inability and his ignorance. We don't know. We have no mind against this great company, meaning we are helpless. In other words, he was never engaged in what? Assuring and making false assurance. Oh, we will get over this, we can go through this, with all the slogans that we have. No. Look at what he said. We have no might against this great company that cometh against us. And what more? Neither know we what to do. It's very humbling, mga kigsunan, because you seldom would hear these words coming from a leader. Regardless, makapitan magas barangay, o mapresidente magas kapilya, o they would always have that projection na kabalo, capable, effective. How much more here? King of Judah. Mga kaibigan, this is, as I have said a while ago, this is the prayer that makes Jehoshaphat distinct from the rest of the kings. Yes, Jehoshaphat was among the good kings that the kingdom of Judah has had, but this prayer of Jehoshaphat make him distinct, even extra special from the rest of the good kings that Judah has had. Kaya makita yun nato diha na ang iyang pagsalig na aragid sa Ginoo. Gani, of course, as a king, he should have and must have counselors with him. Wala na siyang mangisusi yung saman. Makikaaway tayo yung dili. Wala na, oy. Litsos, ha? Litsos, Ginoo. Yes, these are things that we don't like to admit. But you know what? There are just times in our life that this is the best thing that we can do. Ang pag-angkon, madi man yun akong hemo, tabangi ko. Especially when we admit it before the Lord. Mga kigsunan, even sa ato mismo mga kinabuhi, in facing life's difficulties and challenges, there are just times that we just have to admit that, Lord, this is beyond me. I have no ability to deal with it. And I don't know how to deal with it. Again, it would remind us of the very familiar verse from the book of Proverbs, right? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not, and it never do you lean not on your own understanding. Yes, there are just times that all that we need is to what? Seek the Lord. Taliwa nining tanan mga kigsunan, we have looked at Jehoshaphat's deliberate call to pray, and we have looked at Jehoshaphat's desperate cry for help. Now look at the last. Jehoshaphat's dependent gaze upon God. Gaze. Padayon niyang pagtanaw ngadto sa Ginoo. Look at the last part of verse 12. But our eyes are upon thee. We love to sing that hymn, right? Oh soul, are you weary and troubled? No light in the darkness you see. There's light for a look at the Savior, and life more abundant and free. And then what? Turn your eyes upon Jesus. That is what it means. You look around you, you'll be scared. You look around you, you'll be troubled. You look around you, you'll be frightened. You look around you, you'll be devastated. You look around you, you'll be distressed. Even so, when you look in yourself, labaw, Lord, I cannot do it. I don't know what to do. And that is what we see in here in Jehoshaphat's case. Lord, yes, it is true that we don't have the might against this great company and we don't know what to do. But our eyes, look at it. Our eyes are upon thee. Jehoshaphat and the people was in essence saying, Lord, ikaw ra yun ang makahimo niini. Lord, you know our situation. Lord, you know our condition. Lord, you know what is happening unto us. And now we call upon you, and now we cry upon you, and now we gaze upon you, and seeking for your help. Well, isn't it interesting? But our eyes are upon thee. You know, mga kaigsunan, human nature, our tendency is what? In the midst of problems, in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of a crisis, we need to do something. That is what we often think of. We need to find ways and means. We even often hear it said, it's better to fail after doing something than to fail without doing nothing. You know? It's better to fail after doing something than to fail doing nothing. Sige lang, mas maayo na natin pagkabuhaton. You know, mga kaitsunan, in our Christian living, there are just times that all that we have to do is just be still before the Lord. There are just times that all we need to do is just to rest upon the Lord. Rest ganit, dili na rest nga para mapahuway ka, but simply be calm. Don't attempt to do anything. Be still, rest in the Lord, and simply trust Him. And that is what Jehoshaphat here said. Lord, we don't have the might against this great company that comes against us, neither know we what to do, but our eyes are upon thee. In other words, our eyes are fixed upon thee. The picture here is like that of what the psalmist said in Psalm 145. If you are quick, turn your Bibles to Psalm 145 and verse 14 and 15. Ang pulong sa Ginoo na kaingon, the Lord upholdeth all that fall and raiseth up all those that bow down. 15. The eyes of all wait upon thee, and thou givest them their meat in due season. In other words, the picture here is like that of all His creation, looking up to Him, waiting and watching when the Lord would provide. Behold the fowls in the air, the lilies, the grass of the field, they neither labor nor spin, yet the Lord take care of them. That is what Jehoshaphat had in mind. Lord, we are helpless, we are hopeless, we are in this desperate situation, but our eyes are upon thee, O God. In Psalm 25 verse 15 we read of this, mine eyes are ever toward the Lord, for He shall pluck my feet out of the net. It speaks about God's deliverance. Sama sa usa ka langgam o sama sa usa ka manok that has been trapped in a snare. Caught up in a net. He shall pluck my feet out of the net. Then of course, I think kagani ato ning gibasa our song leader or worship chairman. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. That is what Jehoshaphat meant when he said, but our eyes are upon thee, O God. Ganit mga kaigsunan, in our responsive reading, I wonder if you have took notice of it, but let's open our Bibles quick to Psalm 123. Psalm 123 and look at verse 2. Behold, as the eyes of servants look up to the hand of their masters, and as the eyes of a maiden unto the hand of her mistress, so our eyes wait upon the Lord, our God, until that He have mercy upon us. Look at that. In other words, Jehoshaphat had here, had his eyes fixed upon the Lord. Lord, we know that you are powerful, you are the Almighty One, you are faithful, you are gracious. In fact, it is you who encourage us that if we come into your presence in this house where your name is, And in all our affliction, when we call upon you, you will hear us and help. Remember that prayer? You will hear us and help. True. All this while, the eyes of Jehoshaphat and the eyes of the people were upon God. Remember? We find Jehoshaphat's deliberate call to pray, desperate cry for help, and his dependent gaze upon God. And as to Jehoshaphat and the people of Judah, they had that dependence on God. The fact that they didn't have the ability or the answer or the wisdom to deal with their problem, they humbled themselves before God. And then what? End their prayer with this. But our eyes are upon thee, O God. If you can remember, I said at the outset of this message that oftentimes we limit ourselves into two responses when we find ourselves in a difficult situation. We respond in fear, find way to escape, or we face that challenge and fight it out and endure to the very end. Gani, we are so familiar with this expression, sige lang, matirang matibay, bahala na. What we miss out is that before entertaining these two choices, we actually have the best choice to what? Seek the Lord. Before thinking of doing anything, either you escape in fear or to fight and face the challenge. May we learn from Jehoshaphat. In his fear, he seek the Lord and call the people for a fast and pray together with him. And we have learned the contents of the prayer, right? Lord, we are not able. Lord, we don't know what to do. They humble themselves before the Lord. And lo and behold, what happens? As we come to the end, I bring your attention to how the Lord answered their prayers. Come down to verse 14. Then upon Jahashael, the son of Zechariah, the son of Benaiah, the son of Jeiel, the son of Mattaniah, a Levite, the son of Asaph, come the Spirit of the Lord in the midst of the congregation. And he said, Hearken ye, all Judah, and ye, inhabitants of Jerusalem, and thou, King Jehoshaphat, thus saith the Lord unto you, Be not afraid, nor dismayed, by reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Tomorrow go ye down against them. Behold, they come up by the cliff of Ziz, and ye shall find them at the end of the brook, before the wilderness of Jeruel. 17. Ye, look at this, ye shall not need to fight in this battle. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. O Judah and Jerusalem, fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord will be with you. You know, mga picturean, dili ba sa pag-unsa-unsa, if only we are able to apply this sa tuwang mga kinabuhi. Yes. Before thinking or contemplating on what to do, might as well seek the Lord and hear straight from the Lord of what you should do. Di ba mo ito nakita din eh? Rather than consulting counselors, advisors, or whoever around him, King Jehoshaphat chose to what? Seek the Lord. And it is when he seek the Lord that the Lord revealed unto him o kung sa'y angay niyang buhatan. It could have been a different story when Jehoshaphat called for a council meeting. Okay, all my advisors come together. Hear ye one, hear ye all. This is the crisis that we are facing. Masamok pa kay uban, skapo ta, uban atong ngawayon, uban mingon wa tay budget. Di ba dino? Lo and behold, you know, these are timely principles, or timeless principles, I would even say. because they can be applied to all seasons and even all generation. If it worked in Jehoshaphat's time, you know what? This principle still works today. If only ato yung i-apply sa ato mga kaugalingon. And so, coming to the end of this message, mga kaibigan, I hope that we are able not just to see the godly example and the God-honoring example of Jehoshaphat when he said, "But our eyes are upon thee, O God." May we also be encouraged to consider and emulate his example. For it could be that we are in a desperate situation and that we find ourselves in a loss on what to do. Before attempting to do something, mga kaibigan, may I encourage you to learn the example of Jehoshaphat, that before anything else, he chose to seek the Lord. And you have seen for yourself how the Lord is pleased to bless him.